Alright, so we now learned that the EPI sequence can acquire data quite fast, but it comes with severe drawbacks in form of these susceptibility artifacts or geometric distortion. So it can be used to acquire dynamic processes in the human body, but you might end up with severe artifacts in your images. So that's why there's another type of MR sequence which also allows you to acquire dynamic processes, and this is basically the so-called radial sequence. So before we always looked at Cartesian sampling patterns where we acquired k-space in a line-by-line fashion. So for the radial sampling, we acquire k-space in form of so-called radial spokes. So we start in the center of k-space and then traverse to outside regions of k-space and sample the data. And we do that in the demonstrated radial sampling pattern on the right. Alright, so now from the gammaStar front end, open up the radial sequence, the 2D one, which you find directly at the top of this list. So you're greeted with the familiar plot and some information of the radial sequence. And if we look at this plot, it looks somewhat familiar. And the reason is that it's basically quite comparable to the flash sequence which we looked at directly at the beginning. So if we scroll into single events, we see that one repetition of the radial sequence actually is quite comparable to one repetition of the flash sequence. And the reason is that we have the familiar excitation pulse with the accompanying slice selection gradient, additional rephasing of the slice selection gradient to improve or to make sure that we get the full signal from the magnetization back. And afterwards we have a prephasing on the x-axis, readout event and rephasing. And with succeeding repetitions, we see that we have our known additional encoding on the y-axis. The difference between this type of sequence and the flash sequence now is that it's not like having individual encodings on the y-axis which select the Cartesian line and then having a readout which reads out always the same line in x direction. But now, as we see during the readout event, we have both x and y gradients, which tells us that we are not traversing like in a rectilinear fashion through k-space, but this tells us that we are basically traversing in a radial fashion. And we see that with increasing repetitions, our x and x gradient will decrease while the y gradient will increase, until we eventually reach a point where the x gradient completely vanishes and we only have a y gradient left. That tells us that now the readout basically is not in the x direction anymore, but in the y direction. So that means from the beginning of the readout or of this series of repetitions until here, we change the readout from purely x direction to purely y direction. And in between, we basically have the radial sampling pattern until we reach the purely y direction. And afterwards, we see that the x gradient is increasing again, but in negative direction, until we eventually reach a point where the y gradient almost vanishes and we reach a point where we only have like an x readout event, but in the y direction, so in the negative direction. And yeah, if we would just simulate that, we can also watch the k-space information, and what we see there is exactly what we've just described. So we start with readouts in the positive x direction until we reach positive y direction, and finally go back to negative y direction. This allows us to sample this whole radial space of this whole radial k-space. So if we look how such an image is reconstructed, we can again click on this reconstruction pipeline. And now we see that we have a non-uniform Fourier transform. This basically tells us that the data was not acquired in a rectilinear fashion, but in a non-Cartesian fashion. So what we now need to do is we need to apply a non-uniform Fourier transform. So that means the sampling pattern is not uniform. And this will allow us to reconstruct the image in the end. The interesting part is that now you see that the image quality is not very nice. So we see all these types of artifacts or stripe artifacts in that image, which is quite common for non-optimal radial sequences where the protocol settings are not optimal. And in this case, it's mainly related to the fact that the TR is quite short, so we are not in steady state. And it's basically the same thing which you would expect for the ghosting artifacts, which we saw, for example, for the rare sequence. But this is the non-Cartesian way of how it looks like. So what we could do is we could prolong the repetition time to maybe 500 milliseconds to see whether this changes something. So we would execute the sequence to wait until the result is there. So we see it's already way better than the previous result, but still some artifacts. So we could even go a bit longer and see what that does. And we see that, now we somewhat get a nice image with some decent, the contrast is still not as good, but at least we get rid of the main streaking artifacts, which were the result of this approach to steady state before. We could also play around with the number of spokes, so we can open up our protocol window, go to the special card, and we see that now we have basically 64 spokes. So 64 spokes basically describe how many of those radial lines in k-space we acquire. So we could increase that to 256, for example, to see how that affects image quality, because the thing is, if you have too few spokes, you would end up with quite large areas of k-space which were not sampled in these outer regions, which will also give you or increase these streaking artifacts which we saw before. So as you see, now we increase the number of spokes, so we have a more dense sampling pattern, or the more densely sampled outer regions in k-space, which improves the image quality quite a lot. If we decrease it to, for example, 32, we would also see that this would not be something which we would measure in practice. So we see that we have quite some artifacts in here. But note that this type of artifact is also quite suitable for reconstruction techniques like compressed sensing, because it's almost noise-like. So sampling quite a few number of spokes and then applying compressed sensing techniques to get back like the full image quality is also a quite common approach. For example, in motion resolved imaging, where you would have some binning procedure in the end, where you would just bin your acquired radial spokes into different motion states, and then per motion state you would end up with just a fraction of the total number of spokes. But you could apply techniques like compressed sensing to get back your full image quality quite often. Okay, so maybe set that back to 200 56 spokes. And as we've seen before, this basically gives us some quite nice proton density like contrast. And now you might wonder, how do I get, for example, T1 weighted contrast, which we were able to produce with the flash sequence? So as you know, a T1 weighted contrast requires us to have a short TR and a short TE, because short TE means T2 weighted differences between tissues do not have any influence on the signal, as we acquire the signal before major signal components are decayed. And short T1 times mean that the magnetization does not have much time to relax. That means long or areas of the image with long T1 times basically would end up with poor signal in the T1 weighted image, and areas with short T1 times would recover a lot of signal and would appear bright in those images. So we could apply that protocol, and we could check how our image looks like, and if we can create a T1 weighted image by that. So you see it already looks quite decent. So areas with long T1 times, like these, the ventricles, appear dark, while other areas with shorter T1 times appear bright. But the thing is that we still have quite a lot of these steady state approaching artifacts because of our short repetition time. So what you could do to overcome this is you could just add multiple measurements, which means that after a single measurement, where the steady state approach occurs, another measurement is performed, and after that we have one additional measurement, so 3 measurements in total, and we could simulate that and verify the result. So it takes a bit to execute the sequence now, because now it needs to perform 3 times the same measurement. Alright, you see that the sequence simulated and reconstructed, and the first measurement looks the same as before, but if we click through that, you see that for the second measurement already, image quality is way better, because here we are not approaching steady state anymore. That means for each excitation we already get the same amount of signal, which is a low amount for the long T1 areas and large amount for the short T1 areas, and this allows us to create this nice T1 weighted contrast using the radial sequence. Alright, so we've seen how to create different image contrasts using the radial sequence and how to get rid of these undersampling streaking artifacts. So generation of a proton density weighted image without these streaking artifacts was possible by adding a longer TR, because the longer TR ensures that the steady state is always correct for, or is always present for each excitation, because with a long TR basically all magnetization is able to recover again. That means no discrepancy between magnetization levels between different excitations and acquisition windows, and therefore we get rid of our streaking artifacts. For the T1 weighted image, we need to have a short TR, as explained multiple times already, at a short TE, but that would again make those streaking artifacts more present in our image. So to get rid of that, we can basically simply add multiple measurements. So we ensure that for subsequent measurements we are in steady state, and then we would also get rid of our streaking artifacts. So we also quickly want to have a look into another non-Cartesian way of sampling MRI data, which is the spiral sequence. So in contrast to Cartesian sequences or radial sequences, we now acquire case-based data in form of so-called spirals. So we start in the case-based center and spiral our way into the outer regions of case-space. And yeah, we'll quickly look through that in the gammaStar frontend too. So we again open up a sequence. So directly under that 2D radial sequence, you find the 2D spiral sequence. So just load it. So you're granted with the familiar plot. And now you see that the spiral sequence looks a bit different than previous sequences again. So in this case, we acquire 2 spirals, so 2 times from center of case-space to the outer parts. We see that our sequence consists of the well-known excitation here with the accompanying slice selection gradient and the rephaser. And afterwards, we see that we start from the central case-space, as we only have small gradients, and then with small amplitudes, we spiral our way into the outer parts of case-space, while we have a acquisition window which is turned on like the ADC event for the whole event of this spiral sequence. And we do that 2 times, so this spiral is slightly shifted when compared to the first one, so we acquire additional and different case-based data with this one than with the first one. We can also see that by simulating our sequence again to see how the result looks like. So this is our spiral result, and we can verify the case-based trajectory again, and we see that it's basically how we acquire this spiral sequence from central case-space to outer case-space. We can again check the protocol parameters. And see what kind of options we have for adaptations. So again, our well-known echo time and repetition time, flip angle. We can adjust the number of spirals, so could also just use a single one to acquire whole data. So then the plot looks like this. So just a single excitation and acquisition. So we could see how this affects the final image, and we see that image quality degrades quite a bit. So this is basically due to the fact that now the sampling density is less than with 2 spirals. As I said, the second spiral will be applied such that it acquires missing case-based samples from the first spiral, so we get a better case-based density with 2. And of course, it also could mean that if we acquire more samples with a single spiral, that we get more T2 weighting into our data. So if we check the reconstruction pipeline, we see that it looks exactly the same as for the radial sequence. This is due to the fact that, again, we are not sampling Cartesian data, so we need to apply our non-uniform Fourier transform, which would provide us with the correct image data in case of non-uniformly sampled samples, as in this case.